Welcome to the Parenting Tips Podcast. I'm Jeff Reiland, the host of this podcast series. Think about your friendship relationships. What do you look for in a friend? What are the qualities and traits that are important to you? Many people would say they want someone who is fun to be with. They want someone they can trust, someone who will be honest with them, someone who will be loyal to them, someone who shares similar interests and values, someone you can be yourself with. It would be wonderful if these qualities were readily apparent to us as adults. Too often, we think we have found a friend only to feel disappointed or betrayed. People change. Circumstances change. People move away. Along with this, friendships change. But if we circle back to those core values of what we want in a friend, loyalty, trustworthiness, honesty, fun, shared interests, some of these are very big concepts for a young child's world. Shared interest and fun are the most likely starting point. All friendships have a beginning, a middle, and an end. In this episode, we're going to focus on some of the building blocks for the beginnings of friendships in young children. And while it would be helpful to appreciate that sometimes friendships between children end, it is often the case that the circumstances that lead to those endings are well beyond the control of the children involved. Parents move, children change schools or classrooms, children sign up for different activities that sometimes take them away from the time they may otherwise spend with those old friends. There are many elements of friendship that are woven together. Each element represents a set of emotions, thoughts, and behaviors that often depend on your child's temperament, the age of development, and their circumstances. Because many of the basic skills children need to form and maintain friendships are so important, please consider this as an overview with some suggestions for getting started. There are many excellent resources available online. In future episodes, we'll go into more depth on several of these skills. The skills I would like to discuss in this episode include self-regulation, cooperating, turn-taking, problem-solving, sharing, and seeing other points of view or perspective taking. A great foundation and starting place for helping your child to make friends is to learn to become a good friend. In episodes 47 on co-regulation and episode 48 on self-regulation, we discuss self-regulation as the ability to understand and manage our own behaviors and our reactions to situations while moving towards a goal. Let's put that in the context of time with a friend. Your child is playing with another child in a sandbox. They both want to build a large mound, but they have different ideas of how to do it. Suddenly the mound collapses. It was likely due to dry sand, but each child could think the other did it on purpose and be mad, or they could laugh and start over, or they could try to build something else. How your child responds to small but very common setbacks is that thing called self-regulation. Another skill for children in forming friendships is to engage in cooperative play. As children develop between ages 2 and 3, they also develop skills for parallel play. This means that they're mostly doing their own thing, even if they're playing alongside another child. They may share toys, but their focus is really on the thing that they want to do. Starting at the age of 3, there's this gradual shift to mutual play. But just as 2 and 3-year-olds aren't really playing with other children, doesn't mean they're not learning or noticing. They are likely very observant, picking up on language, the give and take of social interaction, possibly sharing toys, and using their own imagination to play independently. They are preparing for mutual play. In mutual play, children enter into each other's worlds of play. They may take on roles as part of their play and work together to achieve the sum result. This starts to happen between ages 3 and 4. One of the challenges here is that young children's language and problem-solving skills are still developing. So it's likely that there'll be some misunderstandings and challenges to help your child overcome those big emotions like frustration or anger related to sharing. Taking turns is baked into the recipe for forming friends. Imagine what it would feel like if you have a friend who always got to choose what to do and you just had to go along. If you challenged their choice, you would be out or your friend would become upset. If you've ever experienced this, or if your child has experienced this, you know how difficult it is. it is hard to be friends with someone who is bossy or inflexible. One solution to this problem is to help guide your child to be successful by learning how to take turns deciding or to take turns in gameplay. To get your child used to turn taking, you, the parent, become a stand-in for turn taking or taking turns. Here is where the even and odd rule that was introduced back in episode 11 can be useful. Your child may need practice at not going first or choosing things all the time. While it may not matter to you, your child needs practice, even if it's about things that are not super important to you. Having regular, meaning daily, moments of not getting their way can help prepare them for siblings, for friends, classrooms, and life, where they're not going to be the only person who has ideas or wants to go first. Another strategy is to create rules at home whereby your child's guests get to pick the first activity from among several choices that you and your child identify. Then, after they've played that for a while, it's your child's turn to pick. It can be risky to assume that your child and their friend will know exactly what they can do and can't do. You will be less frustrated if you make clear what the options are. So much of this is dependent on the weather, what is available at home, and what else is going on any given day. Making a list of options, playing with cars, dolls, Legos, coloring, crafts, going outside, all other activities that are on the list can increase the likelihood of success. But imagine when your child wants to do something that you can't do and the disappointment and frustration that can occur. It's also okay to keep an eye on how the play is developing to gauge how much your child needs support in sharing or problem solving. Have you ever experienced moments when your child became possessive of something they had or were determined not to share it? And have you ever been puzzled why they could not understand when a friend or sibling was determined not to share something they had? Sharing is a concept that requires a child to really stretch their ability to trust that when they share something with another child, whether it's a toy or a snack, that this sharing experience will help create a more positive experience and strengthen that relationship. Think back to those moments when your child got stuck and could not share something. It's almost as if the child was convinced that sharing would either permanently ruin the toy or they may never see it again. There are several important things you can do to promote sharing. The first thing you can do is to model sharing. If you can share something you have, like a cookie with your child, verbalize what you're doing. You might say, I want to share my cookie with you. That way we both can have some. You're giving your child words to attach to the emotions and the actions that make this the experience of sharing. The second strategy you might consider is to offer specific praise for your child when you see them spontaneously sharing with others. You might say, Ellie, that was such a kind thing to do when you shared your toys with your friend Sarah. That made me smile. If you want more ideas on how to be successful in using praise, please go back and review episode 26 on praising kids for more ideas. Remember, giving children specific praise that describes what your child just said or did is much more effective than saying, good job. Let's talk a bit more about managing differences in problem solving. Let's say your child wants to play outside. Their friend or sibling wants to play inside. It doesn't take long for children to experience conflicts with others. They simply have different priorities and goals. This happens in almost every important relationship. The bad news is that these momentary clashes will persist across a lifetime. This is normal. The great news is that kids will get lots of practice at problem solving when there are differences, but they will need your help. Fortunately, there are several very good models to follow, and we'll dedicate an entire episode to teaching problem-solving skills when two or more children don't agree. The last thing you want to do is become the referee for 18 more years. However, basic steps for problem-solving include helping the child identify the problem, identifying several different solutions, looking at the pros and cons of each solution, and then making a decision about which one is most likely to work out. This is not a cure-all intervention. Some problems just can't be resolved to everyone's satisfaction, but most minor differences and conflicts between children can be resolved through compromise. Something you can do starting today is to talk out loud about the ways that you solve problems or differences with others. It's not always that one person gets their way and the other person has to give in. Most people learn how to compromise. We get some of what we want, but we have to give up some of what we wanted also. When your child wants something that may not be practical or possible, use those real-time situations to teach about problem solving. For example, your child wants to go outside and play, but it's almost bath time and bedtime. This is a perfect opportunity to help them manage their feelings of being disappointed that they can't play outside again this evening because there isn't time. But there is time that they can play in the bathtub for a little longer and maybe a couple of quick extra games and an extra book at bedtime to read. As we have started to discuss, the ability for a child to see that there are different points of view, other ways of looking at a situation, is a skill that takes time to develop. Kids get there through lots of trial and error and practice. You can help them along through conversations about different ways to look at something. One fun way to do this is to look at pictures of people interacting or people in different situations. You can call this the detective game. You can find pictures in magazines or online, or even going to the park and watching others. Invite your child to think about what the other person in the picture might be thinking or feeling. There could be clues based on any emotional expressions or what else might be happening in the picture. Similarly, at a park, you may not be able to hear what might be happening, but you can invite your child to imagine if the child across the playground is tired or bored, maybe not feeling well, and if the parent is frustrated or happy, then once your child has described one possible scenario of what is happening, you might ask if there's other possibilities. You could offer an alternative suggestion. The child at the park may not be bored or sick. Maybe they're tired or hungry. The key to this game is not to determine what is the right answer. There may not be a right answer. The goal is to introduce your child to the concept that there's more than one way to look at something. A second strategy is something even more simple, is to draw the letter M or the number 6 on a piece of paper and ask the child what it is. Children who have mastered basic number and letter skills may proudly announce the M or 6. But what if you ask them to look at the piece of paper from the other side? Like magic, the same image is transformed into the letter W or the number 9. There are many optical illusions that can be found in picture images online that show two different things depending on the way that you look at it or what you focus on when you are looking. This is a fun way to teach about perspective taking. A third strategy that you might consider is to help your child understand different points of view through reading stories to them. There are many great books that can help your child gain an understanding that there are different ways to see the same thing. Hey Little Ant by Philip Hoos, The Tale of Two Beasts by Fiona Robertson, each offer different points of view within the same book. For children who are already familiar with classic fairy tales like Cinderella, The Three Little Pigs, Jack and the Beanstalk, and others, there are humorous books that retell each of these stories by other characters. Imagine how the stepmother in Cinderella really saw this, or how the wolf got caught up in this mess with three little pigs when he was only trying to help. Imagine how the giant felt about Jack coming to steal from him. But for starters, let's discuss a few ideas that you may have already tried or can easily implement with your child. Consider having a play date with your child and someone that they've identified as a friend or could be a neighbor, someone from daycare or school or a similar age relative. One quick tip might be to help your child sort out what toys they might want to share with a friend that's coming over and what special toys they might want to put away. While this is important to have this conversation, don't be surprised if, in the moment, your child's friend is playing with one of your child's toys, they become a little possessive. They're still learning. There's a wide range of responses between the parent who hovers, the helicopter parent, and the parent who pays attention only when they hear screams. Both can be problematic. The hovering parent makes it difficult for the child to learn on their own, sometimes by failing. And the unengaged parent who responds to crisis is often just putting out fires by reacting to things that could have been anticipated or prevented. There's a sweet spot here, and thankfully it's fairly wide. You know your child better than anyone. You have a sense of how they react when tired or when exposed to new and unfamiliar situations. Armed with this knowledge, you can gently guide or help anticipate problems to minimize, but not eliminate, some challenges. When your child is first learning to play with other children, they may do a lot of watching. They may jump right in. So much depends on your own child's temperament and the situation. Remain fairly close and observing. It gives you the best sense of where your child's at. If you can facilitate your child playing with another child, encourage it. If they're not interested, don't push it. Making helpful suggestions around sharing or turn-taking can also give your child much valued practice as these new skills develop. Teaching your child ways that they can show kindness will be very helpful in future stages of friendship development. If you have a sense of how long it takes for your child to start to become dysregulated, be prepared to use distraction or some form of separation or change up the activity to keep things running smoothly. If you and your child are part of a play date with another family, have clear expectations about the amount of time or the level of activity you can anticipate. It does no good for children to always have play experiences with other children that end in tears. Find out what seems to be the cause of this frustration and take steps to resolve it and even prevent it. Reading children's books about friendship relationships is another great way to layer in those all-important messages. Check out books like Making Friends is an Art by Julia Cook, or Ladybug Girl and Bumblebee Boy by Jackie Davis, or Big Friends by Linda Sarah. Other suggestions of books on children's friendships can be found online. There are many recommended lists from librarians, from children's librarians. Just Google children's books about friendship and see what comes up. For older children, there are dozens of books about friendship skills for becoming friends, overcoming bad habits like being bossy or not listening. Sometimes books can convey a message to children that parents cannot seem to get through by lecturing. Ask your school or public librarian for recommendations. Or again, use those vast resources of the internet and do your own research on children's books about friendship. To recap, children's friendships begin differently than adult friendships do. Children and adults are looking for connections to others, but in different ways. Kids want someone to play with. We all want friendships that are stable and predictable. That means we want friends we can count on and not be hot one day and cold the next. You can help your child have friends by teaching them how to become a friend. Give them practice at self-regulation, waiting or delaying gratification, dealing with disappointment, and managing emotions are all critical friendship skills. Help them practice skills like turn-taking and sharing. Give them opportunities to learn from you and learn with you about problem solving when you and they want different things. Help them see that there are different ways of looking at something, different points of view. This is a tough one in that we will talk about in future episodes. Seeing different points of view is a skill that can take a lifetime to learn. Be patient with your child and remember they are still learning. Just as children have to first crawl before they can walk and walk before they can run, there is an order to how they slowly begin to understand that different people can have different needs. That is part of what makes each friendship unique and special. Thank you for tuning in and considering this parenting topic. I hope that this information added to your growing toolbox for parenting your child or children. Please consider exploring other topics in this series. Remember, no one parenting tool can do everything. We need many tools to become the best parents for our children. Your children's future depends on you and the time and effort you invest in them today.